Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a mind-blowing 45-year window in history where a struggling, politically unstable island nation totally transformed into the absolute literary powerhouse of the Western world. I am incredibly excited to get into this because the sheer volume of brilliance that emerged during this one specific period is just staggering. So when I say the golden age of English literature, what immediately pops into your head? If you're picturing wealthy people walking around in massive starched lace collars, an iconic queen who absolutely refused to get married, and an unprecedented, explosive wave of theatrical and poetic talent, you're right on the money. We are talking about the Elizabethan Age. And honestly, the craziest part about this era, from 1558 to 1603, is how insanely fast it all happened. It wasn't just England slowly producing a good writer here or there. It was like the universe suddenly opened a valve, and drama, sonnets, and prose all exploded onto the scene at the exact same time. It's basically the 1992 Olympic Dream Team, but for English majors. You've got Shakespeare, Marlowe, Spenser, and Sidney all arriving on the court at once. It was a ridiculous once-in-a-lifetime lineup.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, setting the golden stage. Second, the 1590s Netflix equivalent. Third, the courtly sonnet craze. Fourth, the birth of modern English. And finally, a lasting literary legacy.
First up, setting the golden stage in the vibrant world of 1580s London. You know, before Queen Elizabeth took the throne in 1558, England was, well, kind of a mess. It was bankrupt, constantly fending off massive superpowers like Spain, and being torn apart from the inside by religious wars. But then, Elizabeth steps in and creates what we call the Elizabethan settlement. She essentially tells the country, okay, let's cool it with the religious executions and focus on actually making England great. And she provided this massive, stable umbrella for 45 years. Because of that stability, everyday people finally had the time, the peace, and the cash to create art. Adding absolute rocket fuel to that creative fire was the exploration boom. Picture this. You have guys like Sir Francis Drake sailing around the entire globe, and Walter Raleigh heading to the Americas. These explorers were coming back with wild stories of strange cultures, unimaginable wealth, and actual maps filled with mysterious blank spaces. Think about how much that would blow your mind if you're a writer living in London. Suddenly, the world isn't just your local village. It's massive, dangerous, and completely thrilling. That profound sense of wonder directly fed the literature we're about to look at. Moving on to part two, the 1590s Netflix equivalent, those wildly popular public theater stages. Inside these massive, newly built permanent theaters like the Globe, you had a huge class divide. Before this, plays were usually just religious stories performed on flatbed wagons. But now, we have these grand circular theaters that brought everyone together. Down on the dirt floor, you had the groundlings. These were sailors, pickpockets, and butchers' apprentices who paid exactly 1 penny to get in. And it was total chaos down there. They drank, ate hazelnuts, and literally threw their food at the actors if they got bored. But sitting right above them in the covered galleries, you had wealthy aristocrats paying top dollar for deep, meaningful philosophy. So imagine being a playwright. Your ultimate challenge was to write one single play packed with enough dirty jokes and sword fights to keep a rowdy sailor happy, but with enough philosophical depth to bring an educated nobleman to tears. Talk about pressure. Before a certain very famous playwright took over, the undisputed king of this public stage was Christopher Marlowe. He basically gave English drama its muscle by popularizing blank verse, which is unrhymed iambic pentameter. It sounded like natural speech, but highly elevated. His absolute masterpiece, Dr. Faustus, was this terrifying story about a guy who sells his soul to the devil for infinite knowledge and power. I mean, it was literally the Breaking Bad of the 1590s. The audience was completely mesmerized. Tragically, though, Marlowe's brilliant run was cut short when he died in a tavern brawl at just 29 years old. Marlowe's untimely death paved the way for William Shakespeare to step into his shoes. And, as we know, Shakespeare didn't just write good plays, he completely rewired what human psychology looks like on stage, with heavy hitters like Hamlet, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet. Plus, the guy was an absolute machine when it came to inventing language. Words that you and I use every single day, like vanish, lonely, and manager, were completely made up by Shakespeare just to entertain those mixed-class crowds. All right, section 3, the courtly sonnet craze. This was a completely different, highly private world. So, while the public theaters were a loud, chaotic mess, the royal court was the exact opposite. If you wanted to climb the political ladder under Queen Elizabeth, you had to be the ultimate Renaissance man. You had to fence, dance, and crucially, drop a brilliant love poem at a moment's notice. Enter the sonnet. It's exactly 14 lines, mathematically precise, highly structured, and usually about unrequited love. Think of it as the Elizabethan equivalent of dropping a deeply emotional acoustic breakup track, but using it specifically to gain political clout with an exclusive circle of powerful friends and rivals. Two of the absolute heavyweights here were Sir Philip Sidney and Edmund Spenser. Sidney wrote Astrophel and Stella, which officially kicked off the whole sonnet craze. His work was super intimate, meant strictly for his close circle. Spenser, on the other hand, went huge with the Fairy Queen. This wasn't just a love poem, it was a massive epic packed with hidden political meanings. The character of the Fairy Queen, Gloriana? Yeah, that was a direct, massive compliment to Queen Elizabeth herself. Pure political flattery, but the language was so incredibly gorgeous that Spenser actually invented his own rhyme scheme just to flex. So picture this. You'd hit the rowdy theater by day and read these polished, mathematically perfect poems by night. English was getting a serious workout from both ends of society. Section 4. The birth of modern English through intellectual prose. Now, before this era, if you wanted to write about serious stuff, science, history, philosophy, you wrote it in Latin, period. English was honestly considered kind of vulgar, way too messy for smart, serious thought. But the Elizabethans? They completely rejected that idea. They started writing and translating everything into English, proving once and for all that their language was perfectly capable of razor-sharp, precise thought. A perfect example of this is Sir Francis Bacon. He starts putting out these essays in English, breaking down massive philosophical and scientific ideas in a really clear, direct way. He even coined phrases we still throw around today, like knowledge is power. At the same time, you've got Richard Hakluyt publishing these wild, real-life adventure stories of English navigators exploring the globe. People were absolutely devouring these thrilling travelogues in English, and it totally shifted the culture. It proved English could be brilliant and incredibly exciting at the same time. Which brings us to our final section, a lasting literary legacy and how they rewrote Western DNA. Here's the big takeaway from all of this. The DNA of Western literature was permanently rewritten in just this 45-year window. It was a literal masterclass in collaboration and fierce competition. These writers all knew each other. They drank at the same taverns, rivaled each other, and pushed each other to be better. Because of that, they defined the romantic story structures we still binge-watch today. They gave us the exact vocabulary we use to express our deepest grief and our wildest ambitions. The way they crafted dialogue directly influences how we communicate right now. They essentially rewired the entire English language. So I'll leave you with this. How does a cultural explosion from a small, rainy island 450 years ago still shape the way you express love, grief, and ambition today? Think about it. When you fire off a heartfelt text, or watch a complex anti-hero on TV, or talk about your dreams, you are pulling right from a toolkit built by a bunch of competing playwrights and poets 450 years ago. I really hope these explainer gave you a new appreciation for the massive, lasting power of the Elizabethan Golden Age. Thanks for hanging out, and keep looking for the brilliant history behind the words we use every